Well, today I'm going to be discussing a letter I sent in private and confidential to an administrative probate judge in Broward County, Florida. The judge's name is Mark A. Spicer. His title is Administrative Judge. And I had hand-delivered this document to his assistant, Lizette, at 3:08 p.m. on February 9th, 2016. And at the top, it's marked Private and Confidential Communication. Of course, I never got a response for this, so the point of putting or bringing this to the attention is to make sure there is a record of this, at least in the public. So it says, "Dear Mark, I come to you in peace and in support of the United States." I should bring up this point before I read this. The reason why I brought, for those that may not realize this, the reason why I brought this to a probate judge as opposed to any other administrative judge is because we have to remember that the person we are known to use, or the name, is considered civilly dead, and I had discussed that previously in the Peaceful Inhabitant series on YouTube I did. So what I'm basically asking in this correspondence is if this judge can help me move this situation along, particularly under the rule of USUFRUCT, so I'm not considered by presumption a U.S. citizen. Like I said, of course, like with all my other notices or demands, of course it was not responded to. And again, I guess the reason why they can't respond to it is what's in it for them. I mean, remember, every time you make a claim to the property of the state or the name, there is a I don't want to say the wrong word. I guess there is some sort of legislative authority under the 14th Amendment that you've made a belligerent claim to property that you do not own. Therefore, they are entitled to get a prize, I guess you would call it, or a bounty. I was going to say kickback, but I don't think that's a nice way of saying it. Because now you've done something against the United States and its property, therefore its oppression of insurrection and rebellion, they can get something out of it. So let's go ahead with this. I write, "Dear Mark, I come to you in peace and in support of the United States. I am a simple man who seeks remedy with regard to a person or estate, a factitious entity that was sent to me intentionally for my authorized and exclusive use for the apparent ultimate benefit of the United States. This person or property has the name, whatever. Please see attached authenticated certificate of title for this person as required under the official acts of public officials in their authorized performance of public duty, entitling full faith and credit of such official acts. I request 15 to 20 minutes of your time in private to discuss this matter. I fully understand this registered organization, which is defined under UCC 9-102, was not organized within your jurisdiction. However, I believe within the public position you hold, you are able to assist me with a final resolution in this matter. It is my understanding that the birth event does not register living beings, but rather sets up an estate with the presumption of property or an interest in property being abandoned where such property is held in trust until such time as the return of a rightful heir, and thus the administration becomes void. Please forgive the awkwardness of this initial correspondence. As I am not an attorney, I do not speak legalese, nor do I have any legal training. I have demanded in good faith from various public officials answers to a multitude of questions and sent various correspondence by certified and registered mail, requiring performance of public duty for the authorized and proper administration of this name or property. You have to remember something. I'm not asking these public administrative officials to administrate my property. I'm not authorized to, acquit or discharge the obligations of the name. I just unknowingly do so, and then under their rules I'm considered a trustee or an executor de suntore, which in essence means, okay, you volunteered to take on the suretyship or the liabilities, now you're held liable. Because again, we presume that the name is actually ours, it's our property. This is not legally true, and remember, there's no legislative authority to use a name or that property. It's considered, a name is considered property for personal identification. It's just a presumption that we say, oh, I am so-and-so. And as soon as you say, I am so-and-so, bingo, you're liable, and they profit from this. Continuing on, in essence, all notices and/or correspondence have been ignored by public officials. I believe if I speak directly and privately to you, a local public official, you will be able to provide assistance in the following matter. I suspect a resulting trust was formed. A trust implied by law as determined by a court that a person holds title or possession was intended by agreement implied by the circumstances which the intended owner to hold the property for the intended owner. Thus, the holder is considered a trustee of a resulting trust for the proper owner as beneficiary. So that's exactly the definition. It's a resulting trust. It's a trust because, remember, nothing is ever paid for. Everything is a someday the debt will be due. So let me reread that. I suspect, remember, I'm not making a claim, resulting trust was formed. And by definition, that's a trust implied by law as determined by a court that a person, remember, a person is a fictitious entity, who holds title or possession was intended by agreement or implied by circumstance. So remember, we're sent a birth certificate, it's certified, who holds the original title, the state of XX, whichever state that registered organization was organized in, and with the intended owner to hold the original property for the intended owner. We hold the property for the benefit of the owner. Thus, the holder is considered a trustee, we're the holder, of a resulting trust for the proper owner as beneficiary. Although a legal fiction, the resulting trust forces the holder to honor the intention and prevents unjust enrichment. And I put in parentheses, as I'm guessing, to suggest to make a false claim to property owned by the state, by definition a belligerent act subject to liability where the 14th Amendment kicks in. End quote, end brackets. Continuing on, I have in good faith surrendered, released, assigned, transferred, and conveyed any potential reversionary, and I put that in brackets, interest in such property, the name, to and for the account of the United States without recourse. But it seems I may have not done this properly, or at worst, the public officials do not care to adhere to the law. I suspect the latter. When I speak of the law, I mean to suggest international law, equity, and various references to the bankruptcy of the United States as beneficiary and therefore usufructuary. At times, I believe your probate court can be deemed a court of equity, where equity delights to do justice and not by halves, and where equity will not allow a statute to be used as a cloak for fraud. So you can well imagine where I'm going with this. I am coming to you in private, in good faith, with clean hands. Since I am willing to do equity, I presume, through a signature by accommodation, by the delivery, assignment, surrender, transfer, conveyance, etc., to and for the United States as usufructuary, as equity aids the vigilant, even if I have not did the surrender 100% correctly or fully, understand this legal process based upon my intent and belief that you in your official capacity can address the matter in favor of the person's status to ensure that equity will see that as done what ought to be done. So in essence, what I'm trying to do here, though it doesn't seem worded very well, or I guess it's tricky wording, is I'm suggesting to this probate judge that I have this estate or name, and we know it's an estate, by the way. I want to remind you, under the Peaceful Inhabitant series I did on YouTube, I bring the fact, how do we suggest that it's an estate? Is that, remember, the W-4 form, the W-2 form, the 1099 form, and the 1098 form are all under IRS regulations, and I have to remember where I got that from. I don't recall right off the top of my head. Oh, the IRS manual. It says those 4 tax forms are classified classified number 5 tax forms, which are estate and income tax. So if you get a W-2 or a 1099 at the end of the year, or a 1098 form, which is an interest form you get, I guess, for paying mortgage, you have to ask yourself, well, whose estate am I taking care of, right? Because you have to remember, they have to presume you are dead. They don't talk to real men. They can only talk to fictions, the transmitting utility. And as soon as you say, I am Joe Blow, bingo, you've made a claim. Now they have a jurisdiction over their property, the person. You've consented to be surety of it. Continuing on with this, I am age of majority and of sound mind, and it is my desire to have this matter settled privately without the need to seek remedy and cure of default through a court of admiralty, and I use i.e. declaratory judgment, to have my posterity status and or the person's status change in the records of the public system. And you have to remember, I don't know if I'm saying this word right, posterity is a return to your original status. And that comes from the Libra Code. To provide, to have, or the person's status changed in the records of the public system. So what I'm suggesting by this is they obviously, and of course I have no clue, that when you, let's say you get pulled over by the car and the cop would say driver's license, you would give him the state's ID, and there would be some sort of in their system when they check it to know, you know, if you're a felon or you're a crook or whatever it is, there would be something by that name that says do not detain. This is not a citizen of the United States. It may be a different status. That I have no clue. Continuing on, to provide the necessary paperwork, delivery, and or signature by accommodation to the authorized and proper public trustee to administrate the person I must use by necessity in order to live within a society of people. Since I was not able to purchase a book with the title, for example, What is the Legal Significance of the Birth Certificate? Your Rights, Duties, and Obligations for Idiots, you can well imagine this process and or all information is not easily understood or readily available. It is like attempting to find one's way out of a maze, yet not finding the exit door. I am not sure which public official handles such matter. For example, the OCC, which is the office, the Controller's Office, Treasury, Secretary of State, Department of Transportation, Social Security Administration. In my case, the New York State Secretary of State, the New York Governor, Vital Records, Florida Secretary of State, Florida Governor. Because you have to remember, I'm down in Florida, and the original birth instrument was created in the state of New York. However, continuing on, however, I can imagine in the public position you hold, if not you, there is access or knowledge to the proper and authorized public official who can provide guidance remedy in this matter. Since I have a multitude of questions that require honest and direct answers, probably a public forum would not be in the best interest to discuss this matter openly, as it is my understanding that this could create a national security issue. Besides, how is one able to affirm or swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God, when one is forced into a public court to find out exactly what is the truth? So again, we have to remember that if everybody realized they were not the name, this could cause chaos, public chaos. Again, I don't see that ever really happening because, and I don't mean to be overly sarcastic with this, you have a lot of Hillary supporters who just, you know, if they were told they were getting $1 million, it would be like, oh, how long would they have this? They have no, you know, there are people out there that just have the wherewithal to deal with certain responsibilities. And this is a good time to bring this up. I'm reminding people, and this is what I've said in the previous videos, this is not about getting away with anything or trying not to pay taxes. This has nothing to do with any of that. What this has to do with is, and it's very troubling, it's to the extent it is, I guess I could put that in those words. The government owns everything. They own the name and everything that's titled in the name. For instance, the house, the car, the bank account, the retirement account, everything people assume they can get or is theirs, that is not a true statement. So you don't own anything. And spiritually speaking, I could even come up with, well, what makes us think we own our next breath? We take our next breath by grace from the Creator who created each and every living soul. But the troubling part of this is we give and the system keeps taking. So it's never enough because there's always more to take. And of course, if they were ever honest, meaning the courts and the judges and the government and the lawyers and all that stuff, they would not profit from our stupidity. So this is the problem I have with this. This is why it's important to get this information out. It's important to study this as much as you can. And I have to tell you, a really good source, and this is the only one that I'm aware of at this point, and you can check him out. He does such a great job in explaining what happened and how all this evolved with the birth certificate and the bankruptcy and the rules of war on land. His name is Boris, and his website is iamsomedude.com. I have to tell you, there were some areas I just could not get, like reversionary interest, and Boris explained it very, very well. Of course, we need to help each other try and get this as much as possible because it's not easy to understand, and quite honestly, let's face it, these videos are very long and, to tell you the truth, somewhat boring. It's interesting, but you know, we could all be doing something better with our time than trying to figure out what they're up to. And again, I don't want this to be it's an us versus them. That's not what this is about. This is about coming to